Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is for Gunmetal Gods by Zamil Akhtar. This is a indie published fantasy book, and one that I have wanted to read for a long time. I read a month or two ago the novella called Death Rider, which was like the prequel to this series. And so now I read the first book. This is one of those series that, like, when I first started checking out BookTube, this was a series I heard a lot about, both as a good fantasy series and as a good self-pub series. And so it's one that has been on my radar for a very long time. And it's been one that I've wanted to check out for a long time, because first of all, I've heard it's good, had a, like, unique setting, and also kind of had some Lovecraftian elements to it, which I'm a big fan of, like, Lovecraftian horror. So it seemed like something that might be up my alley, something that I was very interested in reading for a long time, so I finally did it, and I enjoyed this book. I don't think I loved it the way I hoped that I would. Who knows, maybe if I continue the series, maybe I will work up to that point, but this was a really interesting book, and one that I think was really good. Didn't work for me 100%, and I'll talk about that, but it's one that I still had a pretty good time with. So as far as things that I liked, the thing that kind of hooked me and made me interested in reading this series is the world building. And I think that is one of the absolute strongest parts of this book. This book is very much inspired by, like, Middle Eastern culture and mythology and things of that nature, mixed with a bit of like a lot of, like, military conquest type stuff, mixed with a little bit of, like, the Lovecraftian eldritch gods kind of thing going on. So it's a pretty cool mix, and it's something that is very unique for fantasy. You don't see well, you see more variety in fantasy settings nowadays, especially, but it's very different from, like, the typical, like, European fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, Tolkienian kind of thing going on. Very different from that. So it was really interesting to get into that. I really loved the world building. It was very vivid, very immersive. It really, like, from the very beginning, felt like it was a unique world, and just had a strong sense of setting to it that I really enjoyed, and learning more about what the setting was like and all that stuff was really interesting to me. The world building in general was just really cool and very, it was one of the strongest parts of the book to me. I also really liked the prose of this book. The prose is very well written. It is very, like, as immersive, along with the world building. It really kind of gets across the tone, which this has been described before as a grimdark book, which I think I would probably agree with. It's not, like, super, like, nihilistic and everything is terrible and all this stuff, but it definitely fits that grimdark kind of label. And I think the prose really pushes that, like, that tone, and that works very well. I also really like the approach to the story in this, which was very political intrigue kind of based. Like, I saw this book being pitched kind of like Arabian Nights mixed with Game of Thrones, with, like, the Cthulhu gods and stuff. And I think that is very accurate. Like, to me, I got strong A Song of Ice and Fire vibes from this book. So if you enjoy the political intrigue and the machinations and the all this stuff about, like, Game of Thrones, then you would probably enjoy that in this book as well. That's one of those things that, like, for me, for some reason, I just have a hard time keeping track of some of that stuff, and that is not something that I'm, like, super into, so it kind of went over my head, I'm sure, some of the time, but it is something that I enjoyed. It was kind of an interesting way to go about the story, and something that I did like about it, and again, kind of an interesting combination of ideas to make this book. I also really liked, I think the approach to telling the story is kind of interesting, where this is entirely in first person, and it's two POV characters. So you have two different characters who, both are told in first person, and I think each chapter starts with, like, the name of the character, so you know whose head you're in each chapter, and it's pretty much like just every other chapter it changes, I'm pretty sure, or at least most of the time. So never really felt that confusing. It was a little bit at first because, usually when I read a first person book, I expect it to be all in one person's POV. This was not the case here, but I think it did a very good job of differentiating that, so it wasn't hard to follow necessarily. And even though the two main characters, which are Keva and I'm forgetting, is it Micah maybe or something like that? I can't remember. I just looked it up like 5 minutes ago and I've already forgotten. But the two main characters of this book, they're similar in some ways, but they're different enough that, like, even just based on the writing of their sections, you can kind of tell they're different. But, it was handled pretty well for such an interesting writing choice, something that I personally would not have done because for me, that doesn't work quite so well. But for, how it was done very well. And I enjoyed, like, the story here was kind of interesting. Like, these two characters who are very much kind of on opposing sides, kind of, and kind of set against each other. They're both, like I said, they both have similarities. They've both lost someone very close to them in some way. They both are involved with the military. One of them is very much like conquering and all this stuff. One of them is kind of ex-military, kind of used to be part of the military. And so they have like some nice parallels between the two of them, but are set like on different paths that kind of come into conflict at times. And getting that kind of perspective from like these two characters who are in some ways set against each other was kind of interesting. So I enjoyed that as well. But as far as things that didn't work for me as much about this, I think, first of all, the story and the characters didn't quite hook me until pretty later into the book. I loved the ending of this book. Like, the last maybe 20% of this book was fantastic. And the ending hooked me enough that I am definitely planning to continue the series. But I think it took a while for me to really get invested in the story and the characters. I think it's a very well told story, and it's something that, is done very well. It just didn't hook me personally until quite a ways into it, in terms of like the actual characters and their story that was being told. And I think part of that also could have been down to, like I said, the writing choices, the writing style of having it two POVs all in first person. Like, I appreciate that being done because I like the best part of a first person POV is you get to really be in the character's head. So I appreciate that about it, but I personally think I might have liked this book more and might have enjoyed it more if it had been in third person. Either that or, well, you couldn't really tell this story, I think, only following one POV. So if it were in third person, maybe I would have been more into it. I don't know. That is very much like a personal preference thing. First person books tend to have to, I find, for me, work a little harder to really be something I can get extremely invested in, especially in a case like this where you're following two different characters. But, it's done very well. It just, was not something that I particularly loved. I probably would have preferred it done differently. So those really are the big issues for me. And like I said, as the book went on, I got more into it, and the ending of this book is great. Like the last several chapters of this book, I was all in. I was really enjoying it. I mean, there's a lot of parts, throughout the book that I really enjoyed, a lot of scenes that I really enjoyed, and things like that. It's just the overall didn't quite hook me 100%, but I still enjoyed my time with it. And even when the plot and the characters weren't 100% hooking me, the world building, the writing style, like in terms of prose, and the tone and the feel that this book has, because it has a strong sense of like feeling and atmosphere to it. I think all of those things kind of still kept me interested, at least enough to continue reading, and I'm glad that it did, because like I said, I liked the way the book concluded, and I'm very interested in reading more. So as far as overall thoughts, pretty enjoyable. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think I'd give this one like a 8 out of 10 ish. Which, just to demonstrate how much I liked the ending, the last like 20 or 30% of the book brought this up from like a 7 to an 8. So the ending of this book was really good, ended very well, thankfully. And definitely set things up in a way that, you know, earlier on the book, like when I was like halfway-ish, 60-ish% through, I was thinking, you know, I'll probably continue it, but it's not something I'm going to be super excited to continue unless things really pick up. And now that I finished the book, I am like, yes, I definitely want to continue this because I think it set up a lot of interesting things for the future. So that's pretty much my thoughts on this one. Let me know in the comments if you have read Gunmetal Gods, what you thought of it. If so, if you loved it, if you didn't, whatever. If you think that it gets better from here, I am still probably going to continue the series. I own the first 4 books, I think. First 3 or 4. So I am probably going to continue it. I don't know how soon, but I definitely am going to plan to continue it. So let me know if you think it gets better from here or anything like that, or what you think of the whole series and all that stuff. So that is pretty much it for this one. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.